Mandala. So, welcome back to another episode of African Spirituality. And today I wanted to talk to you about a very sacred tradition from my own tradition, my own tribe. So, as you may have seen in the title, it is about working with skulls and how it is a Bamileke tradition, the perspective of the Bamileke tradition on that. This topic, I've wanted to discuss this for a long time. I just didn't get the time, and it wasn't season-wise, it wasn't the time to talk about it either. So as you can notice in this series, if I'm not addressing a specific topic, it may be because this is not something I'm allowed to do at the time, or the season may not be promised to talk about certain things. When you are talking about certain spiritual subjects, you are raising certain energies, and certain energies shouldn't be raised at certain times. So this is why sometimes it takes me a few months to be able to address or talk about a specific topic. So let's dive into this. Let's dive into talking about skull working. Why are we talking about this? I received a few inquiries of people from the US, the diaspora in the US, and I've engaged a little bit on this topic in the community on the YouTube and leaving comments and stuff like that about skull working, because a lot of people are confused or have a different take on that or different perspective on that. So I wanted to clarify a few things. This came about, a lot of it talking about skulls came about from the October/November Dia de los Muertos, which is basically Hispanic-based tradition from Latin America, Mexico being the main, where it's most known. And they have this working with skulls, where they use skulls. In the US there's this thing called now sugar skulls and something like that. So I'm not that familiar with that. I don't participate in that. I just observe that, and I say, it's interesting because Ashira Star God has made a video on this. I don't remember which was the title of the video. Please don't quote me. You can just search her videos and try to figure it out. And I was looking at the comments, and people were just sharing different viewpoints. And some people were saying that it was a cultural appropriation because it's not African American, or it's not black, it's Latino, whatever. And I wanted to clear that up. I wanted to say that no, working with skulls is as ancient as Africa has been there, is as ancient as the indigenous people of this planet. This is nothing new. It has nothing to do necessarily with your wearing t-shirts and having the Starbucks cups and all the different stuff. That's more recent. And I wanted to say, in my tradition, we do work with skulls, so I want to take the opportunity of this video. Okay, so what it is all about. First, I do need to state that it is nice to see that a lot of people want to be practitioners, want to practice rituals, and dive into that. And even do rituals every day, workings every day. I mean, I'm not going to say necessarily rituals, but workings every day and all that kind of stuff. And the only thing that I will say is that in our own tradition, as an individual, we don't do workings every day, okay? You are not disturbing those energies every day. You're not disturbing the spirits every day. You're not asking for things every single day. You're not even doing workings even to show your gratitude every day. We have a very different way of working with the spirit world. Okay, for example, even at night, you're not supposed to be going to nightclubs or making a lot of noise at night, because it's well known that nighttime is more of the time for the spirits to roam the earth and to kind of mingle with the world of the visible, if you like, because at night everything is dark anyways, so you're much more inclined to see whatever you couldn't see when the light was there. You're much more inclined to sense it as well. Just think about being at night. If you've ever been in the forest at night, or in the jungle at night, or the rainforest at night, your sense of hearing, of smelling, everything is heightened. It's like as if you are hearing the little animals, the ants crawling or anything that you start hearing. Everything is kind of like amplified because your senses are amplified, so you're much more sensitive. At least that's my experience. So We have different specific times to be doing workings, to be working with energies. You don't disturb them all the time, and you don't call them to you all the time, and you don't do that in your home, in your own home. Yeah, but that will be a topic of a different video that probably have much longer. That will be like an hour just to present the basics, and I'll do that at a different point. Just leave me in the comments. Let me know in the comments you will be interested in saying in learning more about these specific workings and stuff. So to get back to the skulls, where are the skulls coming from? You know, this is not I'm gonna buy a crystal skull or I'm gonna buy some merchandise or some whatever. No, this is really ancient ancestor workings and ancestral traditions. So the way it's done is that when somebody passes away, before the person even passes away, usually it's not just anybody in the family, okay? Usually it's people who detain some type of esoteric knowledge, some type of spiritual knowledge, people who have totems, for example, who have agreements with certain species, with certain spirits, and who work with them, who have protection from them, who have ties with the spirit world, strong ties. So this person during their living time, they're doing all this different stuff, and while they're alive, they will select somebody in their own family, in their own lineage, okay, a blood relative. Usually it's among their own children. If it's a man, he will select it. If it's a woman, the same way, she will select somebody to succeed her in this agreement with the spirit world and with whatever entities she has protecting her, protecting them, whatever relationship she has built with the environment. So it's with this particular environment. It's not with something that's like across the sea. It's not with some foreign goddess or whatever thing that you feel or find it cute. It's about knowledge and understanding that are based on the environment and the culture that you're living in. The environment, it's environment based, meaning the knowledge and the animals and the plants and the spirits and all that are specific to the land. And when this person has this relationship, all of these powers and all this working and this protection that's this protection is provided to her and to her family and to her clan, basically. And she's able to find, herbs that you need if you're sick. She's able to divine certain things. She's able to call certain spirit of nature. She's able also to have certain animal act and react, come to her aid and protect her. And so while she's alive, she will select somebody who she will pass on that knowledge. She will pass on those agreements. So usually she looks at somebody who viewed his responsibility very dearly with a lot of passion. Sometimes she will choose, but sometimes the child itself will show itself. So it's not uncommon that your own daughter or your own son will say they don't want to live with you. They want to go live with your mother. They want to live with their grandparents. And they will refuse as early as they can speak, like 1 year old or 2 year old. The 2 year old will say, no, Mom, I don't want to live here. I have to go to the village and stay with grandma. And time and time again, there have been people, especially now in the modern time, but there have been people who question that, who try to force the child to stay. And especially in our tribe, it's well known that a kid as young as 2 can get out of the house and find its way to the village, which is like thousands of kilometers, like hundreds of kilometers away from the home, and be wandering the street, and your parents will be looking for you everywhere, and then you'll hear at the village that your child is there. The child is with grandma, and sometimes that's what it takes for the parent to actually realize that this child does not belong to you. This child belongs to the greater family, to the greater community. It's not just your own child. Yes, he came through your vessel and he has a specific bond with you, but his purpose is much greater than just you or just your family unit. And most of the time it just goes smoothly. The mother will just say, okay, we'll leave it there, and she'll come and visit the child. Sometimes the child will also want to go home and come back. So it's not like the child is just repudiating his mother or anything like that. In the child's mind, the child understands clearly who is his mother, the ties that he has with the mother, and why he needs to be with the grandmother. And most of the time it's because that child is ready to get the information as early as 2 years old. And that's simply, it's not extraordinary. It's simply because before you come into here, you're not, this is not like, that's what the fact people keep saying that this is a prison planet and all that crap. For us, we have nothing to do with that kind of philosophy or that kind of perspective. For us, we choose to come back here. We choose to be incarnated in the family that we have, and to come back as ancestors and to finish the stuff that we started, to perpetuate and to continue building the blocks that we need to block. So we are not being spit back on earth, despite our will or whatever. No, we make agreement before that. We announce ourselves, and we are able to, as young as 1 or 2, to voice, part of our purpose. And I think the more the more meddling with those kind of tradition, and the more people just get confused. Some people spend their entire life wondering what they're going to be, what is their purpose, why are they here? While in other tradition, it's done in such a way that when you stop meddling with that, then you're able to just come here and know exactly what you need to be done within a year of your life, within 2 years of your life, okay? So this person will then choose that child, or the child will just announce themselves, and then they will teach things to the child. They will teach everything they know of, and it's often known that the child as well will improve certain things, deepen certain relationships, go even further in continuing the work that has been done already. So now that you see that, you may be wondering, where does the skull comes into play? We're getting there. So now the child has been selected. Is the child that's going to be the bridge after this person is gone and that person has transitions? This child, which will probably be an adult by then, will now be taking on that responsibility of doing rituals or working with the spirits, ensuring that the space where the spirits are is not disturbed, and providing everything that needs to be provided to them, and of course receiving also all of the blessings. And it's like a symbiotic relationship between nature and that person and the family by extension. Okay, now when this person pass on the knowledge and all of that, and then when the person's transition, we have traditional funerals. I think I did a quick video on the funeral, Bamileke funeral somewhere. I'll try to link it if I can find it, otherwise you can search for it. Once that is done, the person is buried on sacred land, so we know where the person, the body is going to be buried. The body is always buried in our own village. We don't go and bury our dead in some other place, in some random places somewhere. So even if the person happened to travel somewhere and pass away, wherever they travel, we bring back the body to our own land. And especially for someone like that, their body needs to rest in their own land because they have a special tie to that land. Okay, so once the person is buried in what we call a cemetery, even though we don't call it like that, we will bury the person. And then after a few months, I think it's 4 or 5 months, I don't remember exactly, after that, when most of the skin and most of the skin and all of that is already purified and gone, people do a ritual and go get the skull of that person. And the skull, so it's an actual real skull. This is not some stuff you buy in the store or anything like that, and then you will bring the skull. And the person who was named the successor is basically the successor. The person who was chosen by this person prior to the transition basically is the person that will be responsible to care for the skull. And the skull is not just the fact that the skull is the actual skull of the ancestor containing the DNA, but it's also the symbolism of what that represents. That represent that person. It represents that person, and because it is a skull, it is bones, it also represents the ties that we have with the invisible, with the world of the dead. And this is not about death culture or anything like that. This is about a way of honoring and remembering the ancestor and being reminded of the bonds and the role and responsibilities that we have towards the dead, but also towards any spirits that we're working with, and spirits that are protecting us, and spirits that are just occupying the same space as we are in our environment. It's not because you can't see them that they're not there. So for us, it's really important to continue on with those relationships, okay? So then after that, this person brings the skull, and the skull usually stays with that person forever until that person passes away. So you can find people who have multiple skulls to care for, multiple skulls to use, if they inherit them all. Usually that skull is kept in the foundation of a home. of a small home that is outside of the home where people live. So we don't bring remains of an individual within the spaces where we live. Yeah, so we don't bring things from the dead into the space where we're living, where we have kids and all the different stuff. No, we leave it outside, and most of the time it is kept in the kitchen, in the underground of the kitchen. So if there is like the ground, let's say if that you have the floor, the kitchen floor, there will be one space in the kitchen floor that is not cemented, that is just ground, and usually the skull will be buried there. And that's just to make it easier, because most of the time the successor is supposed to feed the skull, is supposed to keep the memory and the energy of the skull alive, meaning that every time you're eating as a successor, the skull has to be eaten as well. The ancestors have to be fed as well. And we're not talking about an incense and all kind of stuff. No, we're talking about real food. We're talking about when you're cooking, like for example, if you're cooking the ancestors' favorite food or food that they enjoy very much, then you have to throw a portion of it outside, or you have to throw a portion of it where the skull resides. And then you will see right away that when you do that, ants will come around to start nibbling on that. When you throw it outside, other animals will come. When you throw it outside, other animals will come around and start eating that. So it's not about just, putting food on your altar inside your home and waiting for the spirit to eat it. I don't know who came up with that, but it's for us, our perspective is that the food that you're giving to the ancestors is actually being eaten by the animals and the environment, because it is a symbiotic relationship between us and the environment. So when we're doing that, the environment also, the animals in the environment also will feed from that. That means when you are, whatever food you're doing. And then we have, so I was talking about when you cook food for yourself or for your family and you are a successor, then you will take a portion of that and you will give it away to the ancestor outside in nature. So that's why every home has a portion of it, which is a garden. Most Africans, when you go to their homes, at least for us in Cameroon, most of them, at least in the village and stuff like that, you always have a backyard. You always have a place where you have, banana trees and all the kind of trees and plants growing, where you can actually put this food there. So that's one thing. Another thing is also there are specific times where rituals need to be done, where working needs to be done to make sure you keep this relationship going, in addition to the daily things that this person has to do. And in those specific times, there are specific dishes that we do in order to feed the ancestor and the skull. There are specific dishes that are based with corn, palm oil, and salt, and some other ingredients that I'm not going to name. So it's you take that now to the place where the skull is, and then you make this just for the skull. This is not something that you are making for your own family and anything like that. This is something that you're preparing with the intention that it is for as part of the entire for the purpose of the ritual. And then sometimes if you have grandkids around and things like that, you can have them taste it a little bit, or you can even have them give it away to the ancestor. And so there are specific dishes that they are classified specifically for that purpose and none other. And those, like I mentioned, the one I've mentioned didn't include meat. There are other that do include meat and that do include animals in there. So yeah. And then so you have to know that it's not everyone that is habilitated to do that. It's not everyone that will have skulls and that will work with skulls and do all of that. So it's not based on your own feeling or whether you find this cool or whatever. No, it's based on the responsibility that is imposed on you. And this person has a specific tie to the land. That means this is somebody who cannot go and want to live in America, for example. That person has to stay there where the land is and where all other spirits are. So it's like a commitment. It's like a lifetime partner, a lifetime purpose thing. And this is something, as I've mentioned, that you call onto yourself, or you agree to from the spirit world, and you know that when you come in through here. This is not something that you walk around and all of a sudden you decide that this is what you want to do. It's a deeper agreement. It's a deeper spiritual agreement. Yeah. And now, it's not also something that people will see, okay? The skull is not there to show to other people or to show individual. It will never be shown on camera or on TV because it's a familial thing, it's sacred. I think a lot of people, the notion of what is sacred now, or what sacred is, has been kind of like anything is, I don't think there's very few things that people find sacred anymore. Before, the birth of a child was something that was private, intimate. Now you birth you birth it on YouTube or anywhere else. Before, it was the same thing for weddings. It was the same thing for, you know, burials and stuff like that. Now it's all on the open. Or even rituals and stuff like that. But, you know, for this particular thing, a skull will never be shown. It shouldn't be shown on TV. It shouldn't be shown on stuff like that, because it is something that's sacred. This is like the connection that we have with our ancestor is part of a sacred symbiotic relationship that we have with them. And most of the time, you may, some people only saw them when they were so little they can't even remember, meaning that when you have kids and you bring your grandkids, at some point you want them to meet the ancestors, to meet the spirit world. So the kids will be brought with their parents or whatever to the place where the skull is, and they will be introduced. They will be told, okay, this is grandpa such and such or grandma such and such. This is what the person done. This is why. They will explain to you why she is on this land, whose land is it, how is it relating to you, how is it tied to you, what tradition carries on. Explain not everything in detail, but the bigger picture, so you have a sense of where do you fit in this family, where do you fit in this community, where do you fit in this nation, as a very young age. And which something that's particular to the Bamileke tribe, to our tribe, and specifically to my family, I guess, and the town where I come from, is that we have a very strong ties with the land. So our village is far away from the capital. We're in rural area, but most people, when they have enough money, they move to the city. They move to Yaoundé or to Douala, and the difference is that for us, we don't spend too much time in the city. I mean, even if you build a house in the city, Yaoundé or Douala, you will still go to the village. You will still go to where your ancestors are and where the schools are, and so it's not uncommon that sometimes, depending on the family, sometimes people will go every weekend to be in the village, or they will go twice a month, but they will go at least once a month if you're in town. And besides, the bus doesn't even cost that much to be able to go. But for us, it's kind of like a duty. And even when we left the country to travel, my dad made sure that we go home and we spend 3 summer months at home and in the village. It's meaning we may arrive via Yaoundé or via Douala, whatever. We may spend a week in town or 2 weeks in town, and then let's pack our bags, let's go straight to the village and spend our time there. Reconnect with nature, reconnect with your grandparents, with your family, reconnect with tradition, all the different things. Go fetch your own water. Just be immersed in nature. And that's a very strong part of that. And I think this is something, if you are a vegan, you're not going to understand that. If you were brought up in a Western society, you're not going to understand it. Even by just listening Even by just listening to my video, you're not going to understand, you're not going to get it. You will need to process that in order for you to get it, to get this symbiotic relationship, because it's not about just feeding nature. It's about understanding what is your place in biodiversity, which is hard for people to understand, that every single organism in nature has a role, has a responsibility, okay? So you have to know when you're allowed to eat certain things and when you're not. And it goes not only for the animals, but it goes for the plant as well. You're not eating the same plant all year long just because you want to. And that's something we'll get into as we talk about, food and the Bamileke tradition, or food in Cameroon, and how we don't have a national dish because we have so many of them, and because we don't eat the same stuff all year long. There are different things that are available. And I think somebody left me a comment to do a video on that, so that would be a separate topic. So to close up is that working with skulls for us is an ancient tradition. It is a tradition that is very sacred, and this is why also you won't find that many information online, and that I'm not even going to go on that. I just gave you a general kind of idea of what it is about, because it is that sacred. It's not going to be divulgated like that. We're not going to tell you what we're doing and all the different stuff. We just want to let you know. I just wanted through this video to let you know that this is not something that's pertinent only to the native in Mexico or Latin America or North America. This is something that is ancient and is also in Africa, and we've kept that tradition going over for years and years and years. Okay, and this is just the way we care for the spirits around us, not just our ancestors, but all of the spirits that we create and tie bonds to. Okay, And this means also sometimes that the successor sometimes is able to know when, a natural disaster is coming, to know when the harvest is going to good, when they need to change certain things in order to protect the harvest, what other animal will come and need assistance, or will receive that we will receive assistance from. It enable such a relationship that you are immersed, you become part of nature, which is really difficult when you live in the city and you live at other places. You're not going to understand. And I think this also ties to when I've talked about how I don't really take bath all the time because I view water in a sacred way. I have a different relationship with water. I only take bath when it's actually required and necessary for me to do so because of the amount of water that go through the drain when you're doing that. As much as, bubble bath or soaking the bath or soaking in water is nice, behind it there's a meaning of stagnating water, first of all, in the bathtub, that you are just in water that can't move, it cannot go anywhere because you're blocking it there. So you're blocking and sinking all whatever thing, and you're actually fasting in that. So whatever you're trying to purify yourself with is actually staying in there with you. There's a lot of things behind that explain why even people in Africa that have bathtub in the city and that have hot water and that don't take bath that way, people who are at least still tied to tradition and still understanding tradition, they don't do it, and it has nothing to do with not having the money. It has to do with, do you see water as something sacred, or do you see water for your own leisure, for as it's almost as if you shouldn't be using as medication. Soaking your bath in the bathtub should be used as a medication kind of way. So anyways, to go back to that's why showers are more taken, because when you value water, then you value how much you're using it, and you want to keep it going. Water is always meant to be going. So, and it's the best way. This is why for us, when you do purification bath or throat bath, you pour it onto yourself. You're not sinking yourself in there. You pour it in so that as it flows, as it leaves your body, it takes the stuff with it. You're not soaking with all of that in there with you. It depends for what you're trying to do, but that's just one thing to note if you care to. So working with skulls is nothing demoniac. You're not calling on any negative energy. On the contrary, you're calling on the ancestors, the people who came here before you. You're taking care of them. You are not talking and speaking with the dead because they're already there. So those are the spirits. If you go to even a Christian cemetery, for people who are spooky and the Christian who are watching my channel, it's like when you go to a Christian cemetery, those spirits roaming. And this is why, nobody wants to be in the graveyard at night, or just a picnic or whatever, because you're disturbing the spirits. And so for us, it's just like, it's not necromancy. Our working has nothing to do with necromancy. We didn't even know this word existed until, we met the people who invented it. So it has much more to do with the symbolism between what the skull represents and the contact that we do have. It has much to do with what we are tying together in order to achieve, in order to perpetuate our own tradition and to keep them alive, in order to ensure that we fulfill our responsibilities, and that knowledge is not lost. That knowledge needs to be kept and passed on. And this is also why sometimes when we do have sacred woods, we do have sacred land where you cannot build buildings on, those people, the successor usually is the one who will know, who will tell you, if you inherit a land where you can build, where you cannot build, you will have that knowledge. I do, as a last note, I'll say that unfortunately more and more nowadays, successes are, not all of them, but there's few of them that are starting to be much more inclined to money, and sometimes not doing the tasks that they should be doing as a successor, meaning that if there's something going on for one of the children, the successor is supposed to be seeing what the spirits need, seeing what's going on, what assistance we can get, and they're supposed to be doing that out of the duty, because it is their duty, not because they want to be paid or because they want money out of that. And of course, the role of the successor is that because you acknowledge his role and the title and the responsibility that he has, the rest of the family has to rally and support that person and provide for that person, okay, to be able to cover all of that. But this person is not supposed to be, taking care advantage or refusing to do certain things, or even take money and not do the ritual that needs to be performed or things like that. So there are these kind of negative recurring incidents that are happening lately because people want to either take somebody hostage and have money from them, or just don't want to take on their duties, and sometimes you have to go to court, you have to go to the king and to traditional court to be able to either evict this person or resolve the matter. So, you know, as any other tradition trying to survive in this modern world, there are challenges. But, you know, I'm glad that, you know, there still remain a lot of people who take those duties really, really seriously and who cherish our tradition and who are able to do that for us. So I hope this gave you an overview of skull working from the Bamileke tradition, and that it gives you also a different perspective. So the next time somebody tells you this is working with skull, is cultural appropriation, or whatever else, you can refer them to the Bamileke tradition of working with skulls, and as part of our ancestral tradition. Thank you for being with me for this other episode of African Spirituality, and I will see you in the next episode.